Hello, everyone. I'm Drew Winter, a senior analyst at Ward's Intelligence and TU Automotive, and I'm here today with Phil Eyler, who is president and CEO of Gentherm. And we're talking about comfort, which is really important now, but it's even more important in the future as we see all these changes going on with electrification and moving towards autonomy and all that good stuff. So it's going to change everything, the way interiors look and feel, I think. So Phil, give us a quick description of what Gentherm is and what you're doing.
Sure. Well, Drew, first of all, it's an honor to get a chance to talk to you. I was really looking forward to this. And exciting to talk about some of the big changes that are taking place in the automotive industry. So Gentherm is it's really the global leader in thermal technology solutions, mainly for automotive, but I'll let you know some changes that have happened over the last couple of years in the business. So when you think about Gentherm products, most people know us for heated and cooled seats in the vehicle. But we also have many thermally controlled surfaces throughout the vehicle: steering wheel, armrests, panels, footwells, neck conditioner. So anything that adds thermal comfort to a vehicle. That's our primary business. What a lot of people don't necessarily know is we also create battery thermal solutions for electric vehicles. We're also in the medical business. We have a rapidly growing patient temperature solutions business, where we're actually within the hospitals helping to keep body temperature at the right level for operations and in intensive care. And then finally, a big part of our future is really rethinking the climate for an electric vehicle. And we're implementing we think is a revolutionary system of a microclimate. So basically, a climate zone for each individual passenger in a vehicle. And I think we'll have a chance to talk in a little bit more detail around that. But we're about 11,000 employees around the world and traded on NASDAQ.
Okay. So I've been putting together conferences around interiors and user experience for years now, and I noticed really a lot of consumers, they kind of take comfort for granted unless it's really good or it's really bad. So now we have this, all these changes coming along. So tell us a little bit about how Gentherm is going to create all these great experiences and all this good stuff in the future.
Well, I think it's a great point. Comfort has maybe been a secondary or even a third level priority for years and years and years. It's always been about the drivetrain and power and performance, and that's changing. And more and more consumers are really demanding that their vehicle become a center of experience, and not just a utility to get from A to B. The utility part of it is kind of becoming standardized, where people aren't thinking so much about those, the performance of the vehicle. Not that those people don't exist.
Yeah, right.
But so we really see products that we're providing around comfort and wellness and improving health for passengers as really the next frontier. And I can tell you there are a lot of big challenges also related to thermal management in a vehicle, especially with electric vehicles and the changing layout of the vehicle. So we think we're in a pretty good spot connected to where the vehicles are going.
So we see all these concepts out there now that for future vehicles, particularly related to autonomy, where the interiors look like living rooms, where you have seats facing each other, or I've seen some where they're totally reconfigurable according to how they're used, and the seats will move along in tracks along the seat, all these things. And I think the average consumer, again, looks at that and say, wow, that's really cool, but then they're not thinking about when on a hot day, geez, where's that cool air going to come from? Or how are my feet going to get warm with these new configurations or whatever? So you think about that every day, I'm sure. So, tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah, Drew, that's a great point. And we think a lot about that. We tend to think human-centric and not passenger compartment-centric. So if you look at our progression over years, we've really focused on where a person is at in the car, not so much about the entire, air, plenum in the vehicle. So we're really thinking a lot about reconfigurable seating conditions, and can we create a thermal management solution so that it moves with the individual. In the ideal scenario in the car of the future, you're right. Seats can turn to face each other. You can have conferences because it's an autonomous vehicle. That's going to be a while before we get there, but it's going to take migration to make it happen. So I mentioned earlier we're focused on this microclimate solution we call Climate Sense. And that really is all about putting the climate system for the individual around the person's body so that you don't rely on the instrument panel and all of the blowers in that one spot. It actually moves with the individual. And we're really excited about that. And to take it even a step further, we're thinking about personalizing it so that really, no matter what car a passenger gets into, whether it's their own car or someone else's, their profile of their thermal preferences moves with them when they get in these vehicles. And that also fits into the future of mobility. So we're really thinking about this a lot, and of course partnering with the OEMs and the seat manufacturers to make sure that we're marching lockstep.
So a lot of this is actually would fit, it's all like a module in part of the seat or whatever, right? And so if it's a shared vehicle or something like that, I could get in with my phone and it would recognize my phone, and its seat might automatically then put the settings that I would like.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And the technology is more or less there to do it from a software standpoint and a connected car standpoint. Those things are happening. The industry has been more focused around entertainment, but more and more we're seeing this interest in, can I personalize some of these other comfort type solutions? And so yes, exactly what you're talking about is what we're focused on. One great example, I can remember sitting in the crowd at a conference with one of the OEMs, and they put together a car sharing solution, a larger van. Yeah. And the number one complaint that they had from their customers was that people were uncomfortable with the climate, but they were afraid to ask to change because there's 6, 7, 8 passengers in there. Sure. They would much rather have their own personal climate, but they were too shy to say anything. Yeah.
Well, one person's too cold, one's too hot.
Right.
How do you do that? Yeah.
That's right. So I think personal comfort, when it relates to climate, is a hugely important topic.
So when could we see some of these new concepts coming? I mean, would it be a couple years from now, 5 years from now? How soon could we see these, in vehicles that are in dealerships?
Well, we're actively working with a few OEMs on development contracts. So we're partnering with these OEMs to install this climate sense system or microclimate system in a future platform. And it's a big change for the OEMs, you can imagine. There have been a central HVAC system in cars for many, many, many years. That really hasn't changed in a really long time. So there's a lot of testing and an architecture change that has to happen in the vehicle. And so we're partnering with OEMs to do that. We're working with General Motors, BMW, and a handful of others. We expect that given the steady progress of positive results we've had so far, especially with electric vehicles, we think we're within just a few short years of making it happen.
Wow, that's cool. So let's talk about EVs a little bit more. Consumer perception plays such an important role in EV adoption. What elements do you see as critical to accelerating EV acceptance?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot. Cost, of course, is one that the industry is really working on, bringing down the cost of especially the battery systems. But another big area, and it's kind of tied to that, is range anxiety. That's a big issue, especially in different conditions. And to give you one great example is in cold weather. A lot of people don't know this, but the HVAC system of today, if applied directly to an electric vehicle, is the second largest drain on the battery next to the drivetrain itself. So that's a big deal. And one of the focus areas around our Climate Sense solution is to really only use it on the individuals that are in the car. So you can really minimize the amount of power utilization as compared to heating and cooling the entire cabin. I'll give you a great piece of data from the program that we did with General Motors. We were actually able to see the power consumption for the HVAC system drop between 50 and 70% by implementing this system in an electric vehicle. Is actually the Chevy Bolt. And you think about that, apply that to the range of the vehicle, you're able to add 33% more range in the cold weather cycle by installing this. So, of course, we're very concerned about comfort and making sure that the comfort is best in class and continues to improve. But the benefit in an electric vehicle is dramatic as well.
Yeah, I know. I've tested a lot of electric vehicles in Michigan here, and yeah, it's almost, well, it is scary when you get in one and it's below 40 or really cold out, 0, and you turn on the heating. You turn on the heat, and all of a sudden your range drops by 10 miles or 20 miles
That's
automatically, right. And then suddenly your whole comfort level, a mental comfort level, suddenly it starts going down as like, wow, how long, how much range do I really have? And so then you wind up turning down the heat or doing all sorts of other things.
That's right.
That makes things difficult.
Well, I have a friend who loves to go on ski trips with his family and was driving an electric vehicle. Makes his kids pile blankets all over them in the back seat, just to make sure he's safe with his, with his battery charge.
So let's switch gears for a minute. I know a lot of automotive suppliers played a key role in the U.S. response to COVID-19, and I think we've heard a lot about ventilators and things and that type of technology, but Gentherm's technology is different, but it played a really important role in supporting the arsenal of health this year. So tell us what you did.
And we're really proud about that, Drew. Our medical group really played a big role. We have solutions that, number one, manage a body's temperature in extreme fever. And of course, one of the symptoms and complications from COVID is fever issues. And so one of our products called Blanketrol is used to bring down the body temperature, actually cools the body. And this became a really important product for hospitals with patients dealing with COVID. So we had to really enlist all of our resources to keep production up to meet that demand. We have another product called Hemotherm, which actually manages blood temperature. And that is a product that actually received emergency authorization for use on COVID patients. Typically, it's used for heart surgeries, cardiovascular type procedures. And so we also saw that surge quite a bit. So we're really proud of those two devices and the positive impact that they're having on patients. Finally, in our automotive group, we actually worked with Ford to develop their respirator. We developed their whole electronics control module for the respirator used for clinicians in hospitals.
So when you say a respirator, that's actually sort of like the kind of space suits we see, people with the full collective gear. And I know my wife's a nurse, and she told me how all this protective gear is so hot. Yeah. And so that just adds another level to these first responders or these people who are working so hard to save people, but they're in these really hot conditions. So you're using actually sort of like some of the fans and things that actually are used as part of temperature control in vehicles can also be used in these suits to circulate air, or am I getting something wrong?
Yeah, that's the development that we did with Ford.
Yeah,
was a device that basically filters the air in this device. Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and that's something we actually went together with Ford, went from concept to production in 3 weeks with this product. It was unbelievable. So, yeah, I tell you, it's amazing to see what people can do when they're really focused on the needs of helping people.
So we talked earlier about like how the climate control hasn't changed in like 50 years or whatever. Now you're really bringing something different, and it strikes me as it's very scientific as well, because you're not just a climate control manufacturer. You have a medical business. That's another business unit that's doing all this, has all this deep knowledge, and I think what you were talking about earlier, it's called thermal physiology, that actually has all this scientific knowledge and everything that drives product development and comfort management. Am I on the right track here?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Thermal physiology is really it's all about the human body. And if you look at our business, we're really human-centric, where, kind of the classic, especially in the vehicle, the classic focus has been around environment, getting the air up to a certain level
Right.
or down to a certain level. But that's not really what we focus on. We focus on understanding what makes a human comfortable. And it doesn't necessarily equate to the temperature in the cabin,
Right,
or the airflow
yeah.
in the cabin. So what helps us do that in a really effective way is the science of thermal physiology, and it's how the body responds to thermal inputs. And it's very fascinating. And of course, it's why we become expert at it is because of our medical business. When you have to make sure that a patient reaches a certain temperature level, you do that in the most effective way possible. So you'll apply heat or cool to specific parts of the body that are very dense in thermoreceptors, which happens to be, where your body has these nerves.
Yeah.
And if you do that in a productive way, you can tell the brain that you're in a certain level of comfort, or you can heat the organs of the body more effectively. So we apply all of those to what we do in the car. And we're told by our OEMs that we're the only ones that are bringing that kind of thinking to the system. And I'll give you one great example, and the product we created a couple of years ago is a neck conditioner that warms the back of the neck. And the back of the neck is an area that has the most thermoreceptors in the body. And so when you apply it there, you can bring a human to comfort much faster than trying to cover the whole body evenly. So that's just one example of using thermal physiology. In fact, it's very interesting that when you warm the thermal receptors in cold temperature in the back of the neck, it actually sends signals to the rest of the body that you're achieving comfort. And so if your hands are really cold, they start to feel warmer because of this.
So kind of like a cold wet towel around your neck or something like that when you're,
Sure.
I mean, not as messy, but I mean, that same sort of feeling where they just, that kind of cools you
Or a
off
scarf
all the
in the
way
winter.
down.
Yeah,
or a
exactly.
scarf in the winter. Wow, that's neat. Because in the auto industry now, everyone's familiar with these climate control systems where you can adjust it for the passenger and for the driver, but the temperature difference really isn't that different, right? I mean, because it's just kind of redirecting air or something like that. And so with your human sort of centric approach, then and the way your heat conducting materials and things, that gives you allows you to really make a much more custom climate experience or whatever.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And we're developing a system that is kind of learning over time. What we want to do is learn the preferences of individuals, and so the vision over time is to use machine learning to monitor the adjustments that an individual would make to their system and keep changing the automatic setting for that person's preferences. And then that can hopefully, transfer from vehicle to vehicle for that individual.
Oh, wow. So I'm a person who's lucky enough to review a lot of expensive luxury cars, and I've experienced a lot of those really, really nice heated armrests and heated steering wheels and the air-conditioned or the ventilated seats. And so even the air scarf I experienced in a Mercedes convertible
Yep.
a long time ago was just, it's wonderful. But how soon or could these sort of advanced features, I know they're kind of like in luxury vehicles now,
Yeah.
what's the chances of them migrating to affordable vehicles in the future?
It's happening now. Yeah, some of our fastest growing customers are what I'll call affordable vehicle lines. Mazda, for example, has rolled out heated and cooled seats and steering wheels. They're starting to really roll out on very affordable models, just to give you one example, and it's many other customers are doing the same. So there's a gradual migration there. I think it's a pretty affordable feature, and as long as it's designed in on the early stages, it's something that can be done on pretty affordable vehicles. Now, when you get into A segment and a super low cost, becomes a little bit more of a challenge from a cost perspective. But we see a lot of opportunity for growth in the coming years just through adoption in high volume vehicles.
Wow. Well, I've got, that looks like a lot of my questions have been answered. Did you want to sum up?
Sure. No, I think the future of the vehicle is really changing. And whether that's electric vehicles, connected car, or autonomous. And I think one of the most important trends in an area that we're focused on that's crucial for success here is really systems thinking. And allowing OEMs and suppliers to come together and think about how do we tie things together. And I think that if you look at ClimateSense, that's a great example of how an OEM and a supplier and other partners can really think outside the box and not in the same silos that are existing in today's vehicle to create a solution that brings a much greater effect than kind of staying in the past would do.
Well, that's great. I have seen the future, and it looks a lot more comfortable. So, thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Drew.